welcome back to another video on my channel. If you don't know who I am already, my name is Nick Barden. I cover the Toronto Marlies for theleafsnation.com, and today we're doing a mailbag. So if you don't know what a mailbag is already, people would send me questions in on Twitter, and I answer them to the best of my knowledge, and it's all solely on the Toronto Marlies. So if you do enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. If you really enjoy it, subscribe, and comment down below what you think of some of these, and if you do have any questions for future videos, please put them in the comments as well, and I'd be happy to answer them. The first question comes from Reese. How has Nick Robertson looked coming back from injury? He's such an incredible talent, and hoping he can stay healthy, fully recover from injuries, and have a solid finish to the season. But injury concerns are making me nervous about his development. So in terms of Robertson, he's actually looked really good. I haven't been surprised by the way he's played, but when you look at last season, there was a lot of times where he didn't look like he fit in the AHL. I think it was a lot of struggles just with the physicality, the speed, and just figuring out how to play at that level. And I think this season, it's sort of changed, although it's only been 5 games. He's sort of found that step. In his second game back, he scored 2 goals, a nice shot where he cut in from the right side and put it top shelf, and he got an empty net as well. And then his third game back, which was most recently, he took a shot and it went off Joseph Blandisi's stick and into the net, which got him an assist. So he's got 3 points in his first 3 games back with the Marlies. And it's very good to see just him being back and everything like that. I did get a chance to talk to him one-on-one. I'll link the full article down below where I just go through the injury process with him, what happened and how he felt after the injury. He called it devastating, and it definitely was. And then we just talked about what he wants to do for the rest of the season. And he talked a lot about getting to the NHL, and that's what it seems like he wants to do. It seems like he's going tunnel vision and he just wants to get to the NHL. He's on a great path to get there, and we'll see what happens down the line if there's injuries and who would get called up. But as of right now, Nick Robertson is doing great. Hopefully there are no more injuries. I know he did say as well that it was a fluke, and all of his injuries have been flukes so far in the last 1 or 2 seasons. But hopefully he can stay healthy, he can stay on track, and hopefully he can just start producing. But he's been great so far in his return. Bry asks, do Duszak or Hollowell have at least a small chance of playing in the NHL? When it comes to these 2 guys, it's really interesting because both are really good. Joseph Duszak is more of an offensive defenseman, and he has had a lot better play in the defensive zone as of late. Mac Hollowell is sort of a two-way guy. He plays good in the defensive zone. He's very good in the offensive zone too. He's elaborated on it this season and talked about how he wants to step up offensively, and he has done that. Joseph Duszak, though, has been incredible offensively. He's dominated a lot. He's been very good. The guy's got 28 points in 28 games in the AHL, and when you think about it, that is a point where you'd put him up in the NHL just to see where he's at, because that's a good point total for a defenseman, especially in the AHL. But it's tough with these 2 players in particular and the rest of the defensemen on the Leafs, because they're so packed. They have so many defensemen that need NHL time and NHL experience. You have Morgan Rielly and TJ Brody. Then you have Justin Hall, Jake Muzzin, Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren, Travis Dermott. There's not room for another defenseman there. And then you got Christian Rubins, Carl Dahlstrom, Alex Biega. The list goes on. And with these 2 guys, I hate to say it, but if there comes a time where they would want to make the jump, I think when you look at Duszak's game, there's some point where you'd have to really look into it, as well as Mac Hollowell too. It's got to be a point where you do it with Christian Rubins, where you put them up in the NHL just to see where they're at. It doesn't seem, though, like it'll be this season, and it sucks because they're such good players, and they could probably fit on a bottom pair in the NHL at probably some point next season. They're developing, and they're almost, I'd say, NHL defenders at this point. Duszak's playing power play. He's on the top pairing most nights. Hollowell, same thing. He's not on the power play as much, but he's always in that first or second pairing. At some points he's been on the third, but he's been able to produce. So those 2 guys are really good. I don't know if they do get that shot with the Leafs, though, unless there are a lot of injuries. But then again, you have Dahlstrom, Biega, Rubens. There's a lot there, but they should at least get a taste of the NHL just to see, and just for the Leafs to see where they're at. James asks, top songs you'd want to hear during a game. Any songs in particular? I don't know. Probably just a lot of Silk Sonic. That would be nice. A lot of Silk Sonic. Michael asks, how many games do you suspect Liljegren and Ritchie will play with the Marlies? All right, so put your seatbelts on because this is going to be a wild ride. We're going to talk about this. I'm going to try my best to explain this entire situation because it is confusing. It got a little less confusing today on the day I'm recording this, which is Friday, but still there are a few question marks. So we go all the way back to Wednesday, and the Leafs claim Adam Brooks after Vegas places him on waivers. And at that point, we're all thinking, okay, first of all, how do they do this? And then second of all, Timothy Liljegren gets sent down. And a lot of the times this season where the Leafs have had players sort of go down in a paper transaction, they don't show up to Marlies practice, or they don't play with the Marlies, essentially. They stay with the Leafs. And with Liljegren this time around, he stayed with the Leafs, I'm pretty sure. In terms of Brooks, though, today, as of Friday, he got claimed by the Winnipeg Jets. He's going to be going home, which is a nice thing for him and his family. He's been bouncing around a lot. He was in Toronto, Montreal, he went to Vegas, and he came back to Toronto, and now he's going home, which will be nice. So that explains everything. I'm not sure why they did it. Maybe it's just because the center depth in terms of Adam Brooks and them sending down Liljegren. It allowed them to have a little bit of cap space. But now Liljegren's back up, and Nick Ritchie is remaining with the Toronto Marlies. In terms of the way the Nick Ritchie situation plays out, it's a little bit difficult because Nick Ritchie's not going to be back with the Leafs unless there's an injury, and where they can fit him in under the cap. And it's been incredibly difficult on him. First 2 days that he was at the Marlies practices, he didn't speak with the media. The third day he did. I was not, unfortunately, there, but you watch the press conference. He's clearly not happy. It's not a fun situation for him to be in. He wants to be in the NHL. He's good enough to be in the NHL, and unfortunately, at this moment in time, he's not good enough to be there with the Leafs. One of the interesting things, though, is from Joshua Cloak in The Athletic. I read his piece just because I wasn't able to be there for Nick Ritchie. And one of the things that was asked was if he wanted to be moved, and he said no. Okay, so just quickly, I said that Nick Ritchie was asked about whether or not he wanted to be moved. That wasn't the actual question. The question was whether he would want a fresh start somewhere else, and he said no. So that's one of the things that was interesting to me. I'm going to go back to the video now. I just wanted to clarify that and clear it up. That's interesting in a few ways, just because he's from here. I can understand why he wouldn't want to be moved. He wants to be in Toronto. His family's here. He probably likes playing in Toronto. But secondly, if it's not working, there's got to be a move in place at some point from Kyle Dubas and the Leafs, because he's not happy in the AHL. It's clear. Although he may be producing, he scored 1 goal, and I believe he had an assist in his first game, but he's not happy where he is, and it's a tough situation for the Leafs, for Ritchie, for the Marlies. It's incredibly tough for all of them, but hopefully something is resolved. Hopefully either he understands what he needs to do with the Marlies just to stay ready, and maybe takes this opportunity with open arms. He gets traded is another thing. I just hope there's something that happens with him. I hate seeing players unhappy with the situation, especially with his. It sucks. Hopefully there's a resolution that's found. But in terms of games, unless he goes up with the Leafs, he's staying with the Marlies until he's either traded or, again, until he goes back up. So that's really the two scenarios that I see going on with Nick Ritchie. Last but not least, from Puck Luck Podcast, what are the odds Douglas gets an ELC before the trade deadline? So this is an interesting question, because Curtis Douglas, with the amount of Marlies depth right now, was scratched when the Marlies last played. It's interesting because there's a few guys. Kyle Dubas, when he had, I believe, his midseason press conference, named a few players. It was Joseph Blandisi was one of them. Curtis Douglas was another. Antti Suomela. And just in terms of players who could get a contract ahead of the trade deadline so they could play with the Leafs, because they all are on AHL deals. Blandisi in particular, though, he's on a PTO right now. There's a certain amount of games that he can play. I believe it's a little bit over 20. But in terms of those three guys, it's very possible that they could see a potential contract getting placed. Because you look at Curtis Douglas, for example, 6'8", 6'9". He's a tall guy. He's worked a lot this season on his skating. He's been able to produce as well at some points, playing in the bottom end of the Marlies lineup, at some points as well playing on the top end. And there's a lot of good things that have come from Douglas this season. I think he's got a step faster or a few strides faster than he was when you watched him at the beginning of the season. So there's a lot of good things there. He's also good at faceoffs, and the Leafs would love to have a guy like that, especially at his size, and him being able to utilize that size at the NHL level. So he's one. Blandisi as well. I think he's at 15 points in 15 games so far with the Marlies. He's another guy who's interesting. Antti Suomela as well. Those three guys are really good and are really the ones that you'd look at to potentially get signed. And again, there's Josh Hosang in that conversation as well. Whether or not he stays with the Marlies or he is in talks with an NHL team is yet to be seen. But I'd say those three guys are the good ones that could get that potential contract and could see a possible NHL future if the Leafs do that and choose to go down that road at the trade deadline. But again, it's difficult because the Leafs have a lot of other needs, and it's always going to be interesting to see what they do. But in particular with these three players and maybe a few others, you never know, just to see what could happen and just to see what Kyle Dubas does at the trade deadline. It's going to be fun. But yeah, I think I've covered everything that I wanted into this video. If you do, again, have any more questions about any Marlies players, please put them in the comment section down below. If there's any type of content you'd like to see around the Toronto Marlies as well, put that in the comment section. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. If you really enjoyed it, subscribe. It's nice to be back. I said it last video. I'll say it again. It's great to be back. And hopefully I can have this channel to use it so a lot of people can learn about the Toronto Marlies, because it's a great team. It's a very good team this year, very deep, and they could be a good team that could go into the playoffs and do something special like they did a few years ago, but we'll have to see about that. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, again, make sure to leave a like. If you really enjoyed it, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.